The alien sky glowed a deep shade of crimson as Lyra moved cautiously through the jagged terrain. Her mission had seemed straightforward at first: recon the enemy's supply route, gather intelligence, and return. But now the world felt hostile in every direction. Smoke from distant explosions rose like gray fingers into the sky, and the once familiar landscape seemed twisted and alien. Lyra's senses were on high alert. Every rustle, every distant crack of rock made her muscles tense. Her team had split up to cover more ground. Lyra, agile and fast, had been assigned the northern ridge. The wind cut across the barren plains, carrying the scent of burnt metal and scorched soil. She crouched low, scanning the horizon. Her sharp eyes caught a glint, movement. At first she thought it was her imagination, but then shapes emerged from the smoke. Enemy patrols. Lyra's heart beat faster. She had trained for situations like this, yet nothing prepared her for being truly alone. She radioed her team, but static met her ear. The enemy must have jammed their signals. Panic tried to creep in, but she pushed it down. She had to survive. The first wave of attackers moved quickly, surrounding her position. Lyra dodged and weaved, her agility allowing her to stay ahead. She took down one enemy with a precise strike, then rolled to avoid the next. Sparks flew from her plasma blade as it connected with an enemy weapon, but numbers were against her. Another blast grazed her arm and she staggered. Pain shot through her body, sharp and burning. She fell to her knees, breathing hard. In the chaos, Lyra saw something that made her chest tighten. Her own squad had retreated. They were moving away, leaving her exposed. She shouted over the wind and smoke, but it was useless. Her team was gone. She was alone, her mind raced. She had always been proud, confident in her skills. But now reality sank in. She was hurt, her energy low, and enemy forces closing in. Survival depended on quick thinking. She ducked behind a jagged rock formation, pressed herself flat against it, and tried to control her breathing. The enemies passed by, not noticing her hidden form. She stayed still, counting her breaths, listening to their distant voices. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was fading. Her vision blurred, and she felt the warmth of blood spreading across her side. Each movement was painful, but she knew she couldn't stay in one place for long. The planet itself was a threat. Sharp rocks cut her skin, and the wind howled like a predator searching for prey. Night began to fall, and the alien sky darkened to deep violet. Lyra's energy was running out. Her body trembled from exhaustion, and her thoughts became heavy. She thought of her family back on her home planet, and wondered if she would see them again. Her pride, her confidence, it all felt distant now, replaced by raw fear. She knew the enemy would return with better tactics at night. Lyra tried to move, dragging herself toward a small crevice in the rocky cliff. Every step was agony, her body screaming in protest. She paused, listening. In the distance, she heard the faint sound of running footsteps. Her ears pricked, alert. Could it be more enemies? She couldn't take another fight. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, barely daring to breathe. The footsteps drew closer. Lyra squinted into the darkness. Then she saw him, a human. He moved carefully, scanning the area with precise movements. There was something different about him. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. His eyes were calm, focused, and his body moved with confidence that seemed almost instinctive. Lyra's instincts told her to hide, to stay silent, but something in her gut told her to trust him. The human approached, kneeling down to examine her injuries. "You're hurt," he said simply, his voice steady without fear. "We need to get you out of here." Lyra's mind raced. Humans were known for their courage, but she had never been helped by one directly. She hesitated. "Why, help me," she managed to whisper, her voice weak. The human gave a small, reassuring smile. "Because leaving you isn't an option. Not on my watch." He worked quickly, checking her wounds and applying a compact med kit. Lyra was amazed at his efficiency. He used minimal supplies, making precise movements to stop the bleeding and reduce the pain. Despite his calm demeanor, there was urgency in every motion. Every second counted. Lyra struggled to stand, her legs shaking violently. The human supported her effortlessly. "Lean on me," he said. "We'll move slow, step by step." The night around them seemed endless. Shadows moved across the rocky terrain, and distant noises reminded them both that danger was never far. Yet despite the threat, Lyra felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in hours, she was not entirely alone. As they moved, she began to notice small things. The way the human assessed their surroundings. his careful planning of each step, even the way he encouraged her when she faltered. Each action spoke of a natural adaptability, a courage that didn't rely on technology or weapons alone. It was raw, instinctive human skill. Hours passed. They traveled through narrow cliffs over jagged rocks and across open fields where the wind could have exposed them. Lyra's injuries slowed her, but the human was patient. He didn't rush her. His focus never wavered, and he stayed alert to every potential threat. During a brief rest, Lyra finally spoke. "I thought I was going to die," she admitted, her voice trembling. The wind carried her words into the dark night. "You're not," he replied simply. "Not while I'm here." For a moment, Lyra studied him. She realized that humans possess something extraordinary. They could face impossible odds, remain calm in danger, and act decisively when others would falter. She had always been proud of her species' intelligence and speed, but humans had a kind of resilience she had never truly seen before. The alien planet was merciless. Night was cold and the ground was unforgiving. Lyra's wounds throbbed, and fatigue pulled at every part of her body, but the human's presence made the impossible seem a little more manageable. Each step, each careful movement towards safety, was a testament to human skill and determination. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached a small hollow in the rocks, a place shielded from the wind and hidden from view. The human helped Lyra sit down and examined her injuries again. "You're stable for now," he said. "We'll rest here, and at first light we move toward the base." Lyra nodded weakly, her body still trembling. She had never felt so dependent on anyone before. Yet the fear that had gripped her all day was beginning to fade. She realized that survival wasn't just about strength or speed. It was about determination, skill, and the willingness to help others. As she watched the human settle nearby, keeping a careful watch, Lyra felt a mixture of gratitude and awe. This was the beginning of a bond that neither of them could have predicted, forged not by choice but by necessity. In the darkness, amid the harsh alien terrain, Lyra began to understand something vital. Sometimes the most extraordinary power came from the most unexpected place. Humans. Night stretched on. The stars above glimmered faintly, distant and cold, but in the small hollow there was warmth, safety, and hope. Lyra closed her eyes briefly, trusting the human to keep watch. For the first time since the ambush, she allowed herself a moment of rest, knowing that the morning would bring new challenges, but also the possibility of survival. And as the wind howled around them, the human remained vigilant, a silent protector in a world that had once seemed determined to end her life. The sun was just beginning to rise over the jagged horizon, casting a pale light across the rocky terrain. Lyra stirred, her body sore and stiff from the long night. The human soldier, Captain Marcus Hale, was already awake, scanning the area with careful precision. He had stayed alert through the night, never once letting his guard down. Lyra watched him quietly, a mix of curiosity and admiration stirring within her. "Morning," he said without turning, his voice calm and steady. "We need to move before the patrols wake up fully. Your wounds look better, but the sooner we get to the base, the safer you'll be." Lyra nodded, wincing as she tried to stand. Her leg still throbbed from a deep gash, but with Marcus supporting her, she managed to take a few steps. Every movement reminded her of how close she had been to death. The memory of being abandoned by her squad weighed heavily on her, but now there was someone she could rely on. Marcus guided her through the uneven terrain, moving slowly but deliberately. He knew the enemy would likely set up observation points, and he had trained for this. Every rock, every shadow, every dip in the ground was analyzed for threats. Lyra found herself relying on his judgment more than her own instincts, and strangely, she felt relief rather than frustration. Hours passed as they navigated the dangerous landscape. The wind carried strange scents, and distant sounds made Lyra jump at times, but Marcus remained calm, speaking softly to reassure her. "We're almost halfway to the ridge," he said. "Keep your strength up. Pace yourself." As they rested briefly in the shade of a cliff, Lyra finally spoke. "I don't understand humans. You just keep going, even when things look impossible. I would have given up a long time ago." Marcus looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Humans survive by keeping moving, by thinking, planning, and not letting fear control us. You've done well to make it this far." Lyra felt a strange warmth at his words. She had been trained to rely on her speed, her agility, her intelligence. But humans seemed to have an extra layer of resilience, something that came not just from skill but from determination and courage. She realized that she had underestimated them. They continued their journey, encountering small obstacles, fallen rocks, narrow ledges, and shallow streams. Lyra struggled at times, but Marcus adjusted his pace to match hers, never rushing her. He even improvised ways to help her cross difficult spots, using branches and rocks to create stable paths. Lyra couldn't help but marvel at his resourcefulness. By midday, they reached a narrow canyon. The walls rose high on either side, shadows creating a labyrinth of shapes. Marcus motioned for her to stay low. Enemy patrols sometimes use these canyons as shortcuts. We need to move quietly. Lyra followed his instructions carefully. Every step was measured, every sound minimized. The tension in the air was thick, and the silence felt almost unnatural. As they crept through, a small group of enemy scouts appeared at the far end of the canyon. Marcus quickly ducked behind a rock, pulling Lyra down with him. "They haven't seen us yet," he whispered. "We wait for the right moment." Lyra's heart pounded. She had faced enemies before, but watching Marcus in action was different. He didn't panic. He observed, calculated, and acted with precision. After a tense moment, he gave a subtle signal, and they moved in perfect synchronization, slipping past the enemy undetected. Once they were clear, Lyra exhaled in relief. "I didn't think we would make it," she admitted. Marcus smiled faintly. "You just have to trust your partner. That's how survival works." The day continued, and the sun climbed higher, making the rocky ground hot and unforgiving. Lyra's injuries made the journey exhausting, but Marcus never complained. He carried supplies, helped her over difficult terrain, and even shared water and food when she needed it. Lyra realized that humans were not only strong and skilled, but also capable of deep empathy. As the afternoon approached, they came across a small river cutting through the barren landscape. Marcus gestured for Lyra to sit and rest. "We can refill our supplies here, and I can check your wounds again." Lyra obeyed, sitting on the riverbank while Marcus worked. He cleaned the gash on her leg, applying antiseptic and a fresh bandage. "You're healing well," he said. "But you need to conserve energy. We're not safe yet." Lyra watched him carefully. She had expected humans to be physically capable, but she hadn't expected such patience and care. Marcus was methodical, precise, and completely focused on her well-being, even while remaining alert to the dangers around them. It was a combination of skill and determination that she had never seen in her own kind. They spent the rest of the day moving cautiously toward higher ground. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the terrain. Lyra's energy was running low, but Marcus encouraged her every step of the way. "Almost there," he said. "Just a little more." As darkness fell, they finally reached a small hidden cave. It wasn't much, but it offered shelter from the cold wind and the watchful eyes of enemies. Marcus helped Lyra inside and set up a makeshift bed of cloths and leaves. He then sat outside, keeping watch while she rested. Lyra lay on the ground, exhausted but safe for the moment. She thought about how her life had changed in a single day, from fighting alone and feeling abandoned to being saved and protected by a human. The contrast was striking. She had always believed that strength alone determined survival, but now she realized that determination, skill, and empathy were equally important. During the night, Lyra watched Marcus silently. He was vigilant, scanning the surroundings even as he rested. She wondered what made humans so different, so resilient, so resourceful, so capable of facing danger without fear. She thought about her own kind and how they might have handled the same situation. Marcus's calm confidence was something she admired deeply. By the time the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Lyra felt a renewed sense of hope. Marcus helped her up, ready to continue their journey to the human base. "We're close now," he said. "A few more hours and you'll be safe." Lyra nodded, determined to follow him. She had come to trust him completely, relying not only on his strength but also on his judgment and courage. She realized that humans possessed something extraordinary, an inner resilience that allowed them to survive and thrive even in the harshest conditions. As they moved toward the base, Lyra reflected on everything she had experienced. She had been hurt, abandoned, and left to die. But she had also discovered something remarkable. Humans were capable of extraordinary acts of bravery and kindness. Marcus had saved her life, and in doing so had shown her a side of humanity she had never known. The journey was not over. Enemy forces still roamed the planet, and the human base was not within easy reach. But Lyra felt a sense of strength she had never felt before. She knew that with Marcus by her side, she had a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back. By midday, they reached a small ridge overlooking the valley where the human forward base was located. Marcus signaled for Lyra to stay low. "We need to move carefully from here. The valley is exposed and enemy patrols may be nearby." Lyra obeyed, crouching low beside him. She watched as Marcus studied the terrain, calculating the best path to avoid detection. The human's mind worked like a finely tuned machine, anticipating dangers and finding solutions that seemed almost instinctive. She felt a mixture of awe and respect. He was not just a soldier, but a master of survival. After a tense hour, they finally reached the outer perimeter of the base. Marcus signaled for a guard to open the gate, and they were ushered inside. Lyra felt an overwhelming sense of relief. She was safe, at least for now. Inside the base, medics took over, treating her injuries and ensuring she was stable. Marcus remained by her side, quietly observing and offering support when needed. Lyra realized that he had not only saved her life physically, but had also given her hope and a reason to keep going. As night fell on the base, Lyra sat quietly, thinking about the events of the past 2 days. She had faced death, been abandoned, and yet survived. She had been saved by a human, a being she had once underestimated. And she knew that this was only the beginning. With Marcus's guidance and support, she was ready to face whatever came next. She had learned that true strength was not just about skill or speed, but about determination, courage, and the willingness to protect and help others. Humans had shown her this, and she would never forget it. In the quiet of the night, as the base settled into a calm rhythm, Lyra felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that she could recover, hope that she could fight back, and hope that she had found an ally in the most unexpected of places. The journey was far from over, but for the first time since the ambush, Lyra felt that survival was possible. And as she looked at Marcus, keeping watch with steady eyes and unwavering focus, she knew that together, they could face anything. Lyra sat on the edge of the medical bay cot, her injuries bandaged and her strength slowly returning. The human base was alive with activity. Soldiers patrolled, vehicles rumbled over the rugged terrain, and technicians worked tirelessly to repair damaged equipment. It was the first time Lyra had been surrounded by so many humans in one place, and she couldn't help but notice their discipline, coordination, and quiet determination. Marcus Hale stood nearby, observing the perimeter through binoculars. Even in the relative safety of the base, his vigilance never wavered. Lyra admired his unwavering focus, and a new sense of respect for humanity grew within her. Humans were extraordinary, not just because of their courage, but because of the way they planned, adapted, and worked together under pressure. "You'll be ready soon," Marcus said, glancing at her with a calm but reassuring tone. "I need you on your feet. The enemy won't wait for you to recover." Lyra nodded, trying to ignore the soreness in her muscles. She had learned something vital in the past 2 days. Survival was about more than strength or skill. It was about determination, intelligence, and trust. And she trusted Marcus completely. Later that day, the base received urgent intelligence. Enemy forces were advancing faster than anticipated, aiming to strike the human outpost before reinforcements could arrive. Marcus gathered a small strike team, including Lyra, to intercept the approaching threat. Despite her lingering injuries, Lyra agreed. She would not stand idly by while others risked their lives. The team moved quickly, leaving the relative safety of the base. Lyra struggled at first, her body still weak, but Marcus stayed close, guiding her across the uneven terrain. "We stick together," he said. "Step by step we make it through." As they approached the valley, the enemy came into view. Lyra's eyes widened. There were more than she had imagined. Heavily armed soldiers moving in coordinated formations, advancing with precision. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus. Marcus had taught her that fear could be managed if one relied on training and strategy. Marcus pointed to a rocky ridge overlooking the valley. "We'll take the high ground. Advantage is ours if we move smart." The team climbed the ridge, using the rocks for cover. Lyra's agility allowed her to move quickly, but she still felt the weight of her injuries. Marcus noticed and subtly adjusted the team's movements to ensure she stayed protected. From this position, they could observe the enemy and plan their counterattack. "Follow my lead," Marcus whispered. "We strike with precision, not force. We make them retreat." Lyra watched in awe as Marcus coordinated their movements. He signaled silently, directing each soldier to a specific position. Every action was calculated, efficient, and perfectly timed. The human soldiers' leadership and strategic thinking shone brightly, proving once again that humans could face impossible odds and still succeed. The battle began with careful strikes. Lyra, using her speed and agility, disabled enemy sentries and disrupted their formation. Marcus covered her movements, providing guidance and suppressing fire when needed. Together they worked in perfect harmony, blending human ingenuity with Lyra's skill and instinct. Despite their smaller numbers, the team's precision caused confusion among the enemy forces. Soldiers who had relied on sheer numbers found themselves outmaneuvered and outsmarted. Lyra felt a rush of determination, her confidence returning. She realized that humans were not just survivors, they were innovators in combat, able to think and adapt in ways others could not. The enemy tried to regroup, sending a heavy assault team to flank Marcus's position. Lyra's instincts screamed danger, and she moved to intercept, using her agility to slow their advance. Marcus reacted quickly, giving precise commands that allowed their team to neutralize the threat. The humans' calm under pressure and quick thinking turned what could have been a disaster into a controlled victory. Hours passed, and the battle raged on. Lyra, though exhausted, found herself fighting not just for survival but for the respect and trust that had grown between her and Marcus. She could see the human ability to adapt, to anticipate, and to overcome challenges that would have defeated others. Each enemy repelled, each strategic move executed flawlessly, reinforced her belief in human resilience. By late afternoon, the enemy began to retreat. Their formations had been broken, morale shattered by the precision and determination of Marcus and his team. Lyra watched as Marcus coordinated the final push, ensuring that the enemy could not regroup or strike again. Victory was theirs, hard-earned and complete. When the battlefield finally grew quiet, Lyra collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but alive. Marcus knelt beside her, offering water and a reassuring smile. "You did well," he said simply. "You held your own out there." Lyra looked at him, breathing heavily. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Humans, you're incredible," Marcus chuckled softly. "We all have our strengths. You've got skill, courage, and determination. That counts for a lot." Lyra felt a mix of pride and humility. She had learned more in these few days than she had in years of training. Humans were not just capable of surviving. They could inspire, lead, and protect in ways that transcended mere strength. Marcus had shown her that courage and ingenuity could turn the tide, even against overwhelming odds. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Lyra and Marcus returned to the base. The medics checked her injuries again, confirming that she was stable and would recover fully. But the true lesson Lyra carried with her was not about her wounds. It was about the extraordinary abilities she had witnessed in a human soldier. Over the next few days, Lyra trained alongside the human team. She learned their strategies, their methods of communication, and their approach to problem-solving in dangerous situations. Every lesson reinforced the idea that humans were capable of remarkable things, even in the harshest conditions. Their resilience, resourcefulness, and courage were unmatched, and Lyra felt honored to fight alongside them. One evening, as the base settled into a calm rhythm, Lyra stood beside Marcus on a ridge overlooking the valley. The battle had been won, but she knew the war was far from over. She looked at him, a deep sense of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving my life, for everything." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to thank me. We watch out for each other. That's how we survive." Lyra nodded, understanding fully now. Humans survived not just because of their strength, but because of their courage, intelligence, and willingness to protect others. Marcus had shown her that, and in doing so, had changed her perspective forever. In the quiet of the evening, as stars began to sparkle across the alien sky, Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had not known before. She had survived, learned, and grown stronger, not just in body, but in understanding. Humans were extraordinary, capable of feats others could scarcely imagine, and she had witnessed it firsthand. The base was secure for now, and the enemy had been repelled. But Lyra knew challenges lay ahead. Yet she also knew that with Marcus and the human team by her side, she could face anything. The bond forged in survival, trust, and shared courage was unbreakable. As night deepened, Lyra reflected on her journey. She had been hurt, abandoned, and left for dead, but she had been saved by a human soldier, a being who embodied resilience, ingenuity, and courage. The experience had changed her, giving her not just life, but a renewed understanding of what it meant to survive. To fight and to trust, Lyra looked at Marcus, standing watch as always, and felt a profound sense of admiration. Humans were more than allies, they were heroes capable of turning impossible odds into victory. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. The stars above seemed brighter that night, a reflection of hope and resilience. Lyra knew that whatever the future held, she would face it with courage. Guided by the example of a human soldier who had refused to let her die. And in that moment, she understood something vital. Humanity was not just strong, they were extraordinary.